Hello. Let me just get my
Hello.
headphone in. Is it Jacinthe or Jacinthe?
Jacinthe.
There you go.
Yeah, the French version of the hyacinth flower, although I'm not French. My parents were just hippies and liked flowers.
Jacinthe sounds so lovely. Jacinthe. Did I say it right? Jacinthe.
Yes.
Okay, amazing. Jacinthe. Hold on. I got to get my headphone in my ear so we don't get feedback. Okay, thank you so much. I think we're good. I hope we're good. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I'm recording in a makeshift space today because long story. I'm in my daughter's room, but it's not actually a desk, and I have to hold the mic, and it's a little cumbersome. Oh, it's also dark. Shit. Let me just turn on a light. I turned off the light because I did another podcast recording earlier, and it's so hot. It's not like an LED, so it emits so much heat. All right. Okay. Well, thank you very much, Jacinthe. Jacinthe, is that right? Oh my God, I'm just going to say it wrong. For being on the podcast. Okay. It is recording, but we'll sort of pause and then start. Before we dive in, I just realized I didn't do this with my last guest. Before we dive in, I like to tell my guests that at the end, I always ask for a nugget of wisdom. So it could be something that we've already talked about that you just feel like you want to hone home, or it could be something that we didn't touch on that you feel like is a really great last sort of little nugget of wisdom. The podcast is super conversational. I'm just going to ask you a bunch of questions about your expertise, and you're going to wow all of our listeners, and they're all going to want to find you and follow you. And it is edited. So if there's anything that goes a little wonky, don't worry about it. Our editor can remove it. Do you have any questions before we start?
Nope. I've done many a podcast, and love the conversational format.
Does that not how everyone does it?
Some it's a little more structured, but yeah, okay. It's all good. I go with the flow.
I've been a guest on some podcasts, but more often than not, I'm the host. Okay, here we go. Okay, so I'll ask you also as soon as we start just to introduce yourself to our audience in your own words, and then we'll go from there. All right. I'm Rebecca Hay, and I've built a successful interior design business by trial and error, podcasts, online courses, and so many freaking books. Over the last decade, I've grown from an insecure student to having false starts to careers, and now I'm finally in the place where I want to be. Throughout my journey, it's been pretty obvious that I'm passionate about business and helping other entrepreneurs do the same. Each week, I'll share tangible takeaways from my own experience and the experiences of other badass women to help you build your confidence and change your business. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Jacinthe, is this how I pronounce your name?
Yes, Jacinthe Koddo.
Jacinthe Koddo is such a lovely name. I've not heard. What is the origin of that name?
It's the French version of the hyacinth flower, although my parents were hippies. They are not French. They just liked flowers.
I love that. We love hippies. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Jacinthe, why don't you introduce yourself to my audience? Just let them know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Sure. I work with creative-brained business owners, typically interior designers, marketing, comms, PR people, agency owners, to shed light on the black hole that is business finances. And I come at this work as an interior designer in my past. I went to school for interior design, got laid off in 2008, very early on in my career, and took this left turn into entrepreneurship, and made a ton of money mistakes, including, starting my first business on credit cards and paying a lot of debt and not being able to pay my rent, and, just had no financial literacy. So many years down the road now, I was in the right place at the right time to co-found a management accounting company and learned alongside a bunch of CPAs and accountants and CFOs, chief financial officers, how you're actually supposed to manage business finances. And that is what I'm super passionate about now. So I do that as a fractional CFO, chief financial officer myself, bringing rigor and insight and light to project pricing, to forecasting cash flow, to understanding and forecasting for when you can hire and, pay your taxes and those types of things. So in a nutshell, that's who I am and what I do.
Oh my God. Okay. You are in the right place, woman, because this is a conversation we have a lot. It's something that I preach about, but I'm not a financial wizard by any means, because I've learned from my own mistakes. Anyone listening to this podcast has heard all my stories, or most of them anyways. And I'm just so excited to dive into this conversation because this is the conversation that designers need to have. But before we do, I'm like, how that is like, whoa, right brain versus left brain. Like, how do you go from taking interior design in school and being a creative to like fractional CFO? To me, those are like two and completely like opposed things.
I know. It's one of those things like 2020 vision looking backwards. It all makes sense. But yeah, look, if I had said, when I went to interior design school way, way, way back, if I would be here, 17 years later, I'd be like, what are you talking about? That's wild.
So like, why does it make sense? Did you grow up with like financial, like parents who are in the
No,
financial
no,
world? Like, have you
no
ever shown like
financial
interest
literacy.
in numbers?
No.
So tell me, I'm just super curious because it's
Yeah.
such a like out of left field. How does someone who's a creative end up in this industry that you're doing now?
Yeah. So I like growing up, I wanted to be like Debbie Travis and trading spaces. Like we
Obviously,
used to
me
do
too.
that. My friends and I would go trade spaces in one of their parents' houses who would give us a bit of money
I
and do it
wanted
over
to
the
be
weekend.
Paige Davis. Does anyone remember Paige
Mhm.
Davis? She was
Mhm.
the host
Yeah.
of Trading
Trading
Spaces.
spaces.
And I think because I always wanted to be a host. Oh my God. And I'm a host of a podcast. Boom, full circle. I don't have the
Exactly.
cute Paige Davis hair though. Anyways, I digress.
Yeah, so that was me too. I wanted to be that. And so, got into interior design school, took the program here in Calgary, Alberta at Mount Royal University. And, very quickly, right after graduating, started in the industry. And I was very technical. Like I wouldn't say I was the best at the creative ideation side of things or the aesthetic side of things. I'm more like a logic brained person. And got through school and did all that. But it was very evident that I was very technical focused. So I got kind of pigeonholed into doing CAD work pretty early on. And then 2008 hit. So I was only 2 years into my career. So I got laid off. And somehow in the course of figuring out that layoff, I found out about a small business program that was run by the Ontario government because I was living in Toronto at the time. I had moved there after design school. And so I took this 12-week business course that taught me how to do market research and set up a business plan that I pressed save on. And then it was completely obsolete by that point. But one of my hobbies was cooking. I loved cooking. So this business plan was to do a prepared meal delivery service before they were popular. It was for like specialized diets. So that's what I did this whole business program on. And at this point though, under the surface, I was completely in credit card debt because I moved right from home to Toronto to a brand new apartment and bought all new things and again had no financial literacy. So I was immediately in credit card debt and it was super stressful. So I ended up moving back to home, Calgary for a few years, worked at a yoga studio, just like chilled out, got recovered from burnout effectively. And it was during that time that I, paid off my credit cards for the first time with a little bit. I think it was the bank that gave me like, a little bit of a budget. And fast forward several years, I'd gone through this cycle of like trying to start businesses, getting into debt, paying it off, getting a full-time job, that type of thing. And it wasn't until I got kind of my second or third full-time job of my adult career that a friend of mine introduced me to a personal budgeting app. And she became my money buddy. And so that was the start of learning personal financial literacy and starting to budget. And I was on a salary, so it was like consistent, although that didn't last long because it was a startup. So
No, no.
I got laid off a few months later after building this like 6-figure program budget for the program it was and kind of going like, who's paying for this? I don't think tuition's covering this. And sure enough, got laid off a few months later. But that was kind of the crux point, was like a friend introducing me to personal financial literacy through this app. And then I got more curious because it was like, whoa, when I could take control of my personal money, and I hadn't ever done this in my business ideas, right? Because I had never started a business yet that went somewhere. It was all just testing and ideas and market research and all that kind of stuff. So when I got laid off from that job, I was like, okay, I'm going to either be a freelance, like program manager for like experiential events and stuff. Because the place I had been working, this startup, was a leadership development program that taught C-suite executives how to bring design thinking into innovating within their businesses. And
Oh,
so it was this,
interesting.
again, this first full circle moment where I looked back, like however many years, 10, 12 years before that, going like, oh, I learned design thinking in design school. But now it's
Mhm.
this like catchphrase that people are teaching everybody. So anyway,
I did
but it,
not know that. Obviously,
yeah,
I don't work in the corporate
exactly.
world, so I had no idea that was a
Exactly.
thing.
You're just doing design thinking all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that was kind of like the first job where a little bit of this design came full circle. I'd already moved more into like project management and kind of the logistics side of things, which I had been doing in the interior design job that I was in. It was like I did, RFPs for commercial furniture procurement and like the initial planning when a commercial client was looking for building space, like which one should we lease, right? So it was really more kind of this analytical side, not so much the aesthetic side of design. And so, yeah, when I got laid off from there, thought I'd be freelance, but then got presented this opportunity to like brush up on my bookkeeping skills as an entrepreneur because my now co-founders of this management accounting company were positioning this cloud bookkeeping cohort they were running as for business owners to brush up on books or for people who wanted a solid side hustle. So I quickly went from the former to the latter because it was like, this is kind of interesting. So I learned bookkeeping. And then once I learned that, I was like, this gets boring after things are cleaned up and it's just like the regular monthly ongoing stuff. So then I was like, I'm going to be the one who learns all the software and systems like QuickBooks Online and Xero. And like this was 5 or 6 years ago now. So all these cloud softwares were rising to the surface.
Mm.
And so I made that. And then we co-founded this management accounting company. And so then became a co-founder alongside CFOs and accountants, and we put our own budget and forecasting in place. And then, I shadowed my CFO mentors and saw how they go into clients. And, these are a lot of clients
Mhm.
that are raising money or going public or expanding into other countries from where they are. And they're, everything from, tech innovation businesses to huge manufacturing businesses to small food producers to service and professional services. So I got to see the inside of so many businesses, and so that combined with my, entrepreneur brain that had been, trying a business for many, many, many years, that became the first business that I was part of that really grew in scale. And I saw how it all worked and how having financial forecasting and a budget and understanding what your profit margins are
Mhm.
made such a difference compared to my previous experiences. So with Koddo and Co now, like my business, I recognized through building that management accounting firm, which has now grown even bigger to be more like fractional talent gap. So it's like CFOs, bookkeepers, marketing, operations, sales. There's a whole host from kind of the
Mhm.
core business structure that they offer. But for Koddo and Co specifically, I recognized in talking with hundreds and hundreds of business owners through that business, this same shame and embarrassment around business finances and the like, I should know how this works. And when I would ask to look at their books, because if we were putting together a bookkeeping quote to do their books or, for CFO stuff, like what kind of budget tools do you have in place and cash flow and business model? And they would just, it's kind of like it felt like they were undressing in front of me and just like was super
Mhm.
vulnerable to actually show me what was going on inside their books. And so it made me really go like, I'm really passionate about, I don't like raising money and all that kind of stuff is way too stressful. I am really focus and love working with, like I say, the creative brain people, because I was one where it's just like, it is a big black hole. And so let's get the foundational tools in place to bring clarity to the financial. So it's not such a big stress. It's just like another thing that you do in your business, right?
So I think it's so interesting. Like your story obviously is interesting, but I think you talk about the black hole. Like, let's just have a moment there. Like, why do you think that the financial side of small business, let's be honest, we're talking to creative business owners here, interior design firm owners.
Hmm.
Why is that financial side such a black hole for so many of us?
Yeah. I think it's because, well, one, we go through a certain set of education, interior design school, right? And at least in the program I went through, there's like one or two, short modules or courses, right? Like it was very small. One, because it's a design program, it's not a business program. And two, they only have so much time that we're in it, right? But whatever information is taught to us in a way that is like very standard, right? And if you think about money systems, and we're going to get a bit meta, if you think about the economy system in general and what money is, it's like it was designed by a certain type of brained people that thought in a more linear way. And a lot of people, women included, marginalized people, have been excluded from these systems of money. So to me, it's no wonder that it's like, well, I'm not a numbers person, because it hasn't been designed to be delivered to other brained people, like how our brains think, right? And as well, like there's just so much trauma around money. It's such a taboo topic to talk about. So it's like, oh, well, I'm not that person and I should just be able to know, but at the same time, I should just be able to know how it all works, which then creates this like, okay, well, I should know, but I
But I
don't
don't
know.
know.
But who do
Yeah.
I talk to? Because I talk to an accountant and I don't understand a word of what they're saying. Or I talk to a bookkeeper and they aren't giving me the information about like what's
Mm-hmm.
going on in my business, right? And then it's just like, who do I talk to? I have no idea. And then it's like
Yeah. I always
head in
have to
the
say to my
sand.
accountant, I'm like, can you just repeat that like in layman's terms? Because we all as professionals take for granted our knowledge. And
Mhm.
so we use terminology, even as designers in front of our clients, that we
Yeah.
shouldn't use. It doesn't make us look fancier or smarter. It just confuses our clients. And so the
Yeah.
same could be said for accountants or people in the financial industry. I mean, what I've witnessed in my own experiences, there's a severe lack of education
Mhm.
around financial literacy. And I think that's part of this black hole that you talk about, is that we're not taught in school. We're not taught, like, why, how about instead of teaching algebra, you teach like budgeting in high school? Like, seriously, where are you
And how
going to
to do
use
your taxes.
trigonometry?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How to do your
everyone
taxes.
has to file taxes. Oh my God, newsflash, you didn't know that. Yeah, it turns out every human, at least in North America, has to file taxes. Maybe we
Mhm.
could teach our children. Anyhow, that's a tangent. I'm sure you
Yeah.
agree with me. So, what is a good place to start then? If a business owner, if an interior design firm owner is listening to this today and they're like, yep, hands up, yep, that's me. It's me. I don't want to admit it, or I'll admit it, but I don't even know where to begin. I mean, what is a place that they can start to get a handle on their finances?
Yeah. So to answer that question, I'll just briefly explain what I call the black hole, which I have like a little Venn diagram because I'm a visual usually in my presentation. So it's like there's four kind of main buckets. One is bookkeeping. So most people are like, I have an accountant, I have a bookkeeper maybe. If they don't, that is one of the places to start. Like getting your books in order is one
Mm-hmm.
of the best places to start. I rarely recommend doing them yourself. Like there's so many other things that are more valuable for you as the business owner to be doing than your books. And so I highly recommend like getting a bookkeeper among the first. So there's the bookkeeper and the accountant, and what people call the accountant is their tax accountant. Like the tax accountant is there to help you be compliant with what the government is putting out as their rules every year, effectively. Like there's a lot more to it, but again, I'm not going to get into the nitty gritty. Then they kind of get to this place if they have a bookkeeper in place or they're doing their bookkeeping and they are filing their taxes and doing all that stuff. And at the end of the year, going like, oh, that's how much money I made. Oh, that's how much my expenses were. Okay, great. But
Or
maybe it's
that's how much money I owe the government? What? I don't
exactly
have that.
sticker shock. Ooh,
Spoken from experience.
yeah,
Yes.
same. So yeah, then the natural next progression is like, well, but how do I understand? Okay, we're only 5 months into the year and I'm nowhere near doing my taxes, but how do I actually know what's going on? And I email my tax accountant and they never get back to me. So this is where two other lenses come in for small businesses. There's several other buckets of accounting, but we're not going to go into them. They're more for more complex businesses. So there's management accounting and financial accounting. Management accounting is where I sit and where this company I co-founded is. It's about all the things we talked about. Figuring out what your profit is. Are you actually profitable? Cash flow forecasting. Do you have enough cash in the bank? How much cash should you have in the bank? Does your business model actually work? Like, does what you sell cover your expenses and give you profit at the end of the day? It's about managing payroll. Can you hire? What kind of marketing can you invest in? What kind of operations projects? So it's kind of like in the day to day, kind of like near future, 12 to 24 months, what is our money doing for us within the business? And are there things we need to tweak to be more profitable and have more cash in the bank? Simplest view, right?
Yeah.
Then there's financial accounting. So financial accounting is looking future facing and like very future facing. Like, great, what do we want to do with the business? What's the vision you have as a business owner? Do you want to be a global interior design agency? Do you want to stay boutique and just take on 10, really high-end clients per year? You decide And so financial accounting comes in and goes, okay, well, if you do want to be global, or you want to start a second stream of business, like a course, like you have, or you want to start furniture and accessories side of your business, how do we actually fund that? So financial accounting is looking forward and going, what money do we need to invest into our streams of business? And the investment could be grant funding or personal investment, or just your profit investment, or getting an investor, or finding a grant, or getting a loan, right? So
Right.
those are kind of the 4 key areas. And so it's like the things we must comply with every year are taxes. So that's bookkeeping and taxes are generally like a bit hand in hand. And then the next stage is, okay, from a day-to-day perspective, is my business profitable? Like, this is probably a question I think I heard on one of your episodes that you had as well, early days, which is like, am I actually making any money? I have no idea, right? Or can I afford to hire? So the first place to start there is, one, we always look at pricing and like project profitability, because by having profitable projects and selling 10 of those or 100 of those, whatever, if you're bespoke versus a volume business, that project profit adds up to be the what's called the gross margin or gross profit for the business overall. And that's what we pay our overhead expenses
you
and
guys are
profit out
hearing
of.
this, if you guys are hearing this right now and you're like, oh my God,
What
this
is
is
going
complicating,
on?
because I'm
Yeah.
already feeling like people listening are feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that. I did record an episode with my operations manager all about knowing your numbers and project profitability. If you want just a breakdown of terminology, it's a super straightforward episode. I don't know what number it is. I was just looking to see what number it was, but you're right. I have talked quite extensively, but not to this in depth. So I'm curious to like take it to the next level. I'm like currently like scrolling there's an issue with my podcast that the numbers aren't showing up. We've actually rebroadcasted at least once because it was such a know your numbers. Here it is, part 1, understanding project profitability with Marilee Wright, who was my operations manager at the time. That episode is number, if you guys want to check it out. Yeah, it doesn't show. So your guess is as good as mine. 96, episode 96. Because I think that I'm just wanted to stop you there, just because it's like, I know people who are listening are like, oh my God, I don't know any of this. Now I feel overwhelmed and I'm right back in the black hole. But this is what you're describing is in the black hole, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Overwhelmed.
I know, exactly. It's overwhelmed. So let me step back a bit then. The first place is to listen to some of your podcasts, come and grab some resources from me, maybe have a consult call. And know that generally where we're starting from understanding our finances beyond just bookkeeping and tax accounting is starting at pricing your projects and pricing them in a way that there's a good amount of profit left over to build into your business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I feel so passionate about that, because once you start pricing projects appropriately, you could start to bring in proper revenue so you can afford to do things in your business. Exactly. One of them being pay yourself, right?
And hire support from a CFO or an accountant, or hire a
professional
manager.
Photo shoot, like all the things that you want to do. Yeah, totally. So, okay. So understanding if you're making any money, basically, I'm putting into super layman's terms, like, are you making money in your business? Are you pricing your projects properly? And it's so funny. I just recorded an episode with Darla Powell of Wingnut Social, and she and I were just talking about how in the early years, she admitted that she had was totally not making money on projects when she first started her decorating business. She was just pricing it. And I've had designers say this to me inside the community. And if you're listening and this is you, don't worry, because you're not alone. Darla was saying what many designers say to me, and they say at the beginning, they were just happy to get the work and they just priced it based on what they thought they should be. We have a POP alumni who's been on the podcast and recently shared, Jocelyn Pulse of August Olive Interiors in Connecticut. And she shared that when she started out, she just passed on her discounts because she thought that's what everybody did. She thought that's what she was supposed to do. She didn't charge a certain amount for her services because she just thought that was the industry. And so the more you can educate yourself on what others are doing and being in community and listening to podcasts like this, to really help you understand that your service is valuable and you can charge. And I think it's not until, and in my experience, it wasn't until I really looked at my numbers. To be honest, it was after several years of being in business, embarrassingly enough, that I realized, oh my God, I thought I made a lot of money on that project, but I didn't, because my people cost so much, because the cost of goods, right? The amount I had to pay the vendors, because of the time that I put in, because of the mistakes I had to pay for. At the end of the day, shoot, I should have charged 3 times as much. And if you wait too long, like I did, to really look at the project profitability and make sure you're pricing your services for profit, then you are just going to get yourself into the financial red, which is what was me, which I learned like 4 years into my business. My accountant's like, you're in the red. I'm like, what does that mean? Red's my favorite color. And she was like, no, it means you didn't make any money this year. In fact, you're at a loss. And I even owed back taxes to the CRA, which is in Canada. That's the tax man. And I was robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Exactly.
And so if you let it go on too long, it gets worse and worse.
Yeah. And that's not a unique situation. Seriously, I have talked, like I said, hundreds of business owners I've talked to. And this contributes to the like embarrassment and shame of even going to get help, because it's like, oh my gosh, I have this debt I owe. Like I've worked with entrepreneurs where it's like many, many years of, in Canada here, corporate taxes and sales tax. And they just, they won't get help or don't know where to go to get help, and won't talk to anybody about it because they're ashamed. And so it's just this spiral, right? But it's a totally normal situation to be in, again, because we don't get taught this stuff.
Totally. Yeah, totally. 100%.
Yeah.
So, okay. So how, let's just dive into this a little bit deeper. So now everybody's like, okay, I'm screwed because I'm in the black hole. Raise your hand while you're driving if it's you. That's okay, because you're not alone. And maybe they're thinking, okay, I can take that first step, but really, then what? Like, how does a design firm owner who's listening right now, who knows they're in the black hole, how do they then, who do they then talk to help them talk about their finances, get a better handle on what's going on with their finances? Is it an administrator that they hire? Is it a bookkeeper? Is it one of the many accountants? Like, who's the first person? Is it their mother? Like tell us, because I think you can't just do it alone. And to assume you're going to figure it out alone, to your point, where you talked about, like, you don't recommend people do their own bookkeeping. So then if that's the case, then who do you talk to?
Yeah. So this again is part of the big black hole. So bookkeeping is very different than tax accounting, is very different than putting together a budget and forecasting, right? And just like designers, there are different people will be able to do a different combination of all of these things, or just one of them. So I always like to say, first, talk to peers, talk to your other business owner friends and going like, hey, what are you doing, right? The best referral for a bookkeeper or tax accountant is from a friend. So that would be number one. I also, I'm happy people can email me. I have a referral directory I send out to people, bookkeepers and accountants I work with quite regularly. So that's number one. Have a peer group where you talk about money and talk about this stuff as a business owner. Number two is the role is like fractional CFO, or people can also be like fractional business managers or fractional COOs, like chief operating officers, chief financial officers, it's the CFO side of things. But people what you're looking for to get in place to really shed clarity on the black hole is getting what's called management reporting set up. I call it the financial roadmap. It's basically budgeting, cash flow management, forecasting. If any of those words, budgeting, forecast, forward facing, so that you can make plans about what you're going to do with your money. That's kind of the foundational financial tool. And so in talking with any type of financial person or operations person, ask them if they can help you get that in place.
So let's just talk about that for a minute, because cash flow management is something that designers find really challenging. It's something that I really was challenged with, and to an extent, I'm still challenged with it, because our industry, there's ebbs and flows, as I'm sure there are with a lot of other service-based industries. But because our projects tend to be very large and go on for an extended period of time, it's not like a car detailing service, right? Or like, okay, maybe there's some months where there's higher demand and there's less months, like in the winter. With design, it's sometimes unpredictable. It gets slow sometimes in the summer. Like, is there a way to manage and predict some cash flow into your business with such unpredictable projects or unpredictable inquiries? Like, I don't know, when is it going to get busy? I don't know when it's going to get slow. Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. So as part of financial reporting, or the financial roadmap, as I call it, we look at where money's coming from first, right? So there's the project profitability, which is like, okay, you can start from your scoping documents, your scoping calculator, making sure it's got a good margin is awesome. So that's per project. And then you start sending out proposals that way, and you'll know that you're going to be pricing well for any that you do land. So the next part of building financial reporting is looking at what's in our sales pipeline. Like, who are the conversations we're having with? How many have we had? And then it's like, how many do we think will land, right? It's like a probability kind of thing. As well as we look at what are our signed deals that we have right now and how long are they going on for? And then we can translate that into the numbers and make some estimates about how much might be coming in every month. It's not super guaranteed for the sales pipeline. It's more-ish guaranteed for what our signed contracts are, although things might pause and change, right? But it's our best guess. And so we take all that, which is usually living in your head or like in a customer relationship management software or in email or just in like file folders that, online that have the contracts. But we put that in one place so we can see all the numbers and the best estimates that we have. A lot of people think like numbers need to be to the penny. And one of the major aha moments I had in learning about managing business financials is like, there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of guessing. Like, a forecast is just like finger in the wind. What do we think is going to happen? But we
I
have
love that you said that. I feel so much better.
I know.
I was just looking at my forecast with my admin because we sit down to look at it every month, and I'm like, this is so far off from what we predicted in January. I'm like, yep, nope, didn't get that project. Nope, take that down. Oh shit, revenue's way down. Okay, where are we going to grow? But like, you have to track it, right? I think that's the point. But that makes me feel so much better. I'm like, I'm just like guessing. How do other people do this?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Just like a design program, right? Like, when you have a new client, the first thing that you do is go through the whole list of like, what do you need? And then you like do that in a plan, but things can change, right? They might change their mind halfway through. So similarly, we need to collect all the information about where money's coming from, sales conversations, actual contracts. And then we make some educated decisions. And like you said, you start reviewing this stuff regularly. Anybody heard of like a budget versus actual kind of review? It's just looking at like what happened in the past, where bookkeeping comes in, and what do we think is going to happen in the future? And then you also look at what are our actual expenses? What do we have to pay every month? Rent, utilities, marketing, wages, salaries, right? And so it puts together this big financial picture, which becomes the financial management reporting.
Right. So do you recommend people, if let's say it's January, I mean, I don't know when this podcast is going to air, but maybe before January, but if it's January, it's beginning of the year, just pick that because that's what people, plan their calendar year. And you sort of sit down and you're like, okay, here's what I predict the cash flow is going to be for the next 12 months. Maybe you know it, maybe you're making it up. Do you predict that people kind of lock that in and keep that for a reference so that like in March, they can look back at what they said in January and say like, oh, wow, we're doing better than we expected, or, oh, shoot, this is going sideways.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is where what I call financial rhythms come in. So it's like, sure, yeah, you can put 12 months of a forecast together and then go about your business like it's actually going to happen, but it might not, right? Just going back to the finger in the wind. This is all just guesses, educated guesses, but guesses nonetheless. So usually what I like to do is, okay, great. This is what we think is going to happen over 12 months. The near term, so I always tell my clients, we have the most control over what's going to happen in the next 90 days. So that's the most accurate, so to speak. Anything beyond that, wild guesses, wild guesses. So we have to keep looking at it because, of course, 90 days keeps rolling out, right? And So having the financial rhythms in place of, like you said, you meet with your admin person once a month. So as I start to work with clients from a CFO perspective, first we build out their management reporting so we know what their business model looks like and what their sales pipeline and what their contracts are and all that kind of stuff. And then it's like, okay, now we actually have to use this. So we have a monthly budget meeting. And as well as that, the owner meets with the bookkeeper once a month to check on things. We keep an eye on, are our clients paying us slowly? Do we need to like reach out to people to collect because they're really slow? Are we, overspending? So it's a constant, just like
Yes to
personal
all the
budgeting.
things.
Exactly.
Yes to
Personal
overspending.
budgeting.
Yes to
Yeah,
chasing clients. Yes to all
exactly.
the things.
Exactly. And this is like the numbers grounding what happens in your everyday business, right? Like you are following up with clients all the time or potential clients and managing projects and doing all that. But it's this one central spot where you can zoom out to the big picture, not be in the minutia of the business and go, okay, what happened last month? And what are we planning for in the next 3, 6, 12 months? So a lot of my clients, like I actually have several interior design clients, and one of them, this is a testimonial on my website. She said, I have been looking forward to our meeting all month. I literally never thought I would say I would look forward to a budget meeting because at the end of the
Amazing.
meeting, people leave with complete clarity about what's going on, right? So, yeah.
I love that. I think that that's refreshing for people to hear that is a support person that exists. Like having that, you don't need to have a full-time chief financial officer in your business. Like people need to have major revenues to be able to afford someone like
Oh,
that.
yeah.
But
Super
you could
expensive.
have someone who like you have in your pocket, who you have on your team, who's able to almost get you organized. Like I guess my question to you would be, is it something that if a fractional CFO can come in and kind of train a team that exists, like, here's what you need to do, and I'll check in with you? Or is that person coming in and running the numbers and doing the report? Or do they do both?
Yeah. So it's a kind of, it depends situation. It depends on the complexity and the size of the business. So smaller businesses that have, it's just the owner and maybe a handful of subcontractors or 1 or 2 employees. Um, Usually in-house, somebody will be doing the invoicing, right? They'll be sending out
Yeah.
invoices.
Yeah.
Then maybe they're doing bookkeeping, like the owner's doing bookkeeping, or maybe they found a gem of a operations or admin person who also can do bookkeeping. Or that's one of the first things that gets outsourced, is bringing on a part-time. It's not part-time, it's a contract bookkeeper, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Monthly. They come in monthly, they do the books, they
exactly.
report, and that's it. And you
Yeah.
send them
And
all
so
your financial statements. They do the reconciliation. That's what most people that have a bookkeeper that I know of, like a lot of design firm owners that don't have anything, they probably don't even have an administrator or someone even helping with invoicing, to be
yeah.
honest,
Yeah.
but they likely have a bookkeeper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, having the bookkeeper, they'll reconcile monthly, and then like that's a lot of the size of clients I work with, right? I work with clients who are starting usually around like the 300K mark. And so they're getting to that point where they maybe are starting to hire another designer, subcontractor, or CAD, drafter,
Mhm.
AutoCAD person or whatever. But then some of the next support we bring in is like virtual assistant to help with invoicing and this type of stuff. So those are cyclical rhythms. You have to invoice your clients, whether you're doing monthly invoicing or progress invoicing. That's one financial rhythm. Then once all those numbers are in the books, that's, when we look at the financial reporting, we want to put actuals from the past month when we get into a cycle. And then so we can see what happened and go like, oh, did we meet our goals? And then that's where, the monthly meeting comes in, the budget meeting, to look at actuals, look
So
ahead.
would you come in and look at someone's, like, you set up these monthly meetings, you set up kind of maybe the Excel spreadsheets or what have you that you're using or following, I imagine.
Mhm.
Would you then come in and be like, oh, Rebecca, I've noticed, like, are you doing, I guess analysis is the word I think of. I don't know if that's the right word, but are you looking and saying, okay, like your expenses doubled last month? Like what
Yes.
gives? Why is that? Is it necessary? Okay, like what does this mean to your bottom line type of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, yes, looking at the past, I always comb through what's called the profit and loss statement. So it's an accounting financial statement that comes out of the bookkeeping system, and kind of just comb through and go like, is anything looking weird? Like, is it out of whack compared to previous 3 months, 6 months, or things that we maybe haven't budgeted for? So this happens a lot when there is no forward facing budgeting and forecasting. It's like unexpected things. As you
Mm-hmm.
get more into the rhythm of like looking forward and going, oh, we want to spend $10,000 on a new website, or we've got 3 photo shoots coming up that are going to cost us $12,000 from finished projects. Let's put that in the budget so we know it's happening and can see how it's going to
Mm-hmm.
impact our cash flow and our profitability. But it becomes more planned instead of reactionary and like backwards looking and just going like, why did we spend so much money? What happened?
Right. It's projecting, which is the whole
Yeah.
idea of cash flow projections,
Hmm.
as opposed to, it's important to look back. And I think that's almost a first step, is to look at like, what did I spend last year on photography? What am I spending on marketing, to help inform probably your budget and your projections? But then to anticipate, okay, I'll probably have a photo shoot in October because that project's supposed to finish the end of the summer, so that you can start to see how much money you're going to need to really just keep the doors open, if you will.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So that's at the end of the day, like the main 2 goals of any budget meeting is to go, are we still profitable? Are we going in the right direction? And do we have enough cash in the bank? Or do we need to make some changes? Do we need to go drum up some more business? Do we need to change our pricing? Do we need to decrease spending? Right? There's multiple ways that you can tweak a business to come back into profitability. Or maybe we have lots of money in the bank and we are consciously investing, like building a new stream of business, like a furniture and accessories line or something like that, where we have to do some
Mm.
investment in it. And maybe we're
Mhm.
self-investing. So we're using our cash, but we have to be
Yeah.
we're planning for that, right? So yeah, it gets everything into a place where you can stop being reactionary and start being intentional about spending
Mhm.
wisely and like making changes when, yeah, okay, maybe in
Yeah.
3 to 6 months, our sales pipeline is looking really light. And this is a lot of people are having this talk right now because,
Yep.
the
Totally. It's
recession
slowed
word is
right
in the air.
down. Yeah.
So it's
It's a
like,
freaking recession. Can we all just call it already? This is insane. I'm
I
sorry. I
know,
don't know when this is
I
going to air.
know,
Maybe they'll have called it by that time, but like,
I know, who
come
knows?
on, people, like wake up and smell the roses. It's not
Yeah,
the end of the world, but let's call it what it is
yeah,
and keep moving forward.
exactly. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
when you have an understanding of your sales pipeline and your booked contracts, like for a lot of my clients, we were able to go 3 months ago, ooh, our sales pipeline's looking a bit tight. Let's up our sales
Hmm.
activities.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what I think is actually really powerful too about what you said is like, I mean, I made this mistake, as I'm sure many can relate to, is like, you look at the bank account and you're like, cool, I have $40,000 in my corporate account.
Hmm.
Ooh, I'm totally going to book a photo shoot. But you're not looking at how much of that money has to come out to pay vendors.
Hmm.
How much of that money will be me paying myself over the next 3 months? How much of that money is me paying my team? How much is software as a service? Is paying for AutoCAD licensing? Is paying for whatever? And that 40,000 though seems like a lot of money. Whew, can go like that.
Yeah. And the more complex so this is why going back to like the kind of, it depends sometimes on the size and complexity of a business. When you're a sole proprietor and it's mostly just you and you're paying for, yeah, software subscriptions and the odd meal here and there for a client, you can go on your bank account, like it's just you paying yourself pretty much, and you have a sense in your brain of what's going on. As soon as you start hiring other people or you have long-term clients that have giant projects and that, maybe they're paying 50% up front and then 50% later, and it's going to be 8 months later, you can't trust what's in your bank account anymore. You have to have a plan
Mm,
for it. And that's where
mm,
budgeting and cash flow and forecasting and all this kind of stuff plans for that. So it's not just this deceptive bank account number. It's like,
totally.
oh, I have 40,000, but I see, oh, 10,000 is going to go to payroll next week. And I owe 2,300 to vendors and I need to put $1,000 away for taxes. And so quickly that $40,000 is all used up, right?
Yeah. It's funny. And even I think as you start to fill your pipeline, and I know designers or some designers have done this really successfully, and it's something that we've been doing off and on successfully with my design business, is locking projects in several months in advance. And how they get locked in is they pay me their design fee in full,
Hmm.
which like sounds really amazing, right? But I mean, we just locked in another design project and it was over $30,000 in design fees. It's like, woo, yay. But I'm like, holy shoot. Like, I don't want to touch that money because I'm not starting their project until January, and I have a team to support. I have like expensive team because they're very senior and qualified. And so it's like it's like you think, oh yeah, I have all this cash, let's go. You don't want to get into a situation where down the road you are short.
Yeah, exactly. And this could get, again, we're almost, I think, at time, right? But this could get into a whole other conversation about like payment terms and what goes into your contract from a financial
Oh God,
management
that's a whole other
perspective.
podcast.
Exactly. It's a whole other
Yeah.
podcast. And yeah, but yeah, these are all, again, common challenges and what I love supporting people on and jamming on and in conversations like this.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, well, this was I feel like this was a lot of information for people to absorb and think about, but I really love the message that you can do it. Like that, the message I'm hearing you say is like, yeah, it's a black hole. We're recognizing that. So don't be ashamed. You're not alone. I mean, I can tell you from personal experience, like I have been there more times than I like to admit. There is a way out, right? It's about finding the right resources, which we've just shared some really great examples. I mean, your company sounds like an incredible support for especially creative business owners that really struggle in that area and want some guidance. Okay, we are out of time. Before we sign off today, I always like to ask my guests what last nugget of wisdom they want to share with my audience.
Well, you took it. It's that one of, there's no reason to be ashamed about money. Again, it's a taboo topic. Nobody teaches us about it. The more that you can find people you feel safe talking about it with, the better you will feel about it and the more resources that will open up to you. And yeah, just know you're not alone. And there are more people than you know who are in this situation coming from someone who has seen inside hundreds of businesses. So yeah, if you need a safe person to talk to, I'm happy to chat.
So what you're saying is the lady in front of you in Starbucks and the guy behind you are feeling the exact same way.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. When no one talks about it. Oh, this has been a really great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. Can you let everybody know where they can find and follow you?
Yeah, totally. So I'm on Instagram at Jacinthe Koddo, just my name. And then LinkedIn as well, same, just my name, Jacinthe Koddo. Website, koddoandco.com. I'm sure they'll be in the notes.
We will include all of that for sure.
Yeah, and we've got a couple of awesome freebies. There's a free billable rate calculator that people can find on my website, as well as a free cash flow forecast template that people can find.
Ooh, that sounds juicy. We talked so much about cash flow. You guys are going to want to run and grab that. What is that called?
It's just the cash flow
free cash flow template.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, easy
I put
peasy.
I gave the link, so hopefully you can link them in the show notes.
Absolutely, we will definitely do that.
Amazing.
Thank you so much for coming and helping us get out of our black hole, us little creatives over here. And I hope to chat with you again because I think there's a lot of conversation that we can dive even deeper into. So thank you again.
I would love that.
Okay, so there you have it, guys. There is no need to feel ashamed around money. That last nugget was so important. It's just such a great reminder that we're not alone, that it's not exactly, I want to say cut and dry or easy, because that's not true. I think once you learn, it gets easier, but it appears to be so complicated. It appears to be so difficult. And we just, as a lot of us as creative entrepreneurs and design firm owners, we feel like it's just one more hat that we have to wear that we do not want to or we don't feel qualified to. And I know that's how I felt for many years. And I still, to some extent, I feel that way. I mean, after we stopped our call, Jacinthe and I talked about, how she could potentially help me in my business because my business has become so freaking complex, right? I've got essentially 2 businesses operating under one umbrella, and I'm struggling now to figure out, okay, which expense goes with which company. I'm using this software for both, but then this for the other. And so to have somebody who is more knowledgeable in that area kind of come and look at it with a bird's eye view, dive deep into everything, and maybe even hold me accountable for my spending, for my whims. Ultimately, I'm the boss and I'm going to spend on whatever the heck I want to spend on if I think it's going to grow the business. But it doesn't hurt to have somebody else at your side so it feels like they're an extension of your team. Let me know. I'm super curious. If you guys are inside the meetups, the designer meetups Facebook group, let me know. Do you have someone like this in your life who helps you with finances, or are you just kind of trying to wing it alone? I'd be super curious to know. Maybe we'll even post a poll in the group. I'd love to know from you if this is something that you're still struggling with. Okay. If you liked this episode and you loved this guest, obviously go give Jacinthe a follow, say hello, tell her you heard her here on this podcast, and also leave us a review. It really means a lot when I can see those Apple podcast reviews come in, those iTunes reviews, letting people know that, hey, this is a worthy to listen to podcast, because we'll get in front of more people and grow our audience. And then we can attract even better, bigger conversations, and we can have those guests just like we had today that bring so much knowledge. All right, that's everything. I hope you guys are doing well. I'll see you soon.